Hello world, welcome to episode number 26 of the Jimmy Canz Show. Classic Supercard Retrospective yet again, this time Royal Rumble 88. That's it, the inaugural Royal Rumble event. Not the first ever Rumble match, but the first ever Rumble event. Alright, so let's get into it. Royal Rumble 88 was a WWF event held on January 24th, 1988 from the Copps Coliseum in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Attendance was 18,000, and this event was broadcast on the USA Network. As I talked about in my previous retrospective, this was the same night as Bunkhouse Stampede. So let's face it, this is a better battle royal concept that doesn't cost extra for the fans to watch. So it was a smart move by Vince and company. Which would you want to tune in and watch? One that you pay money that's not as good a concept, or one that is just part of your basic cable package and is more enjoyable to watch. So like the Bunkhouse Stampede and the Survivor Series before it, there's only 4 matches on this card. Obviously the Rumble is going to be a long match. You would think it would be 40 minutes with 2 minutes between entrants, but as we all know, that clock is kayfabe. The amount of time between entrants is as long as it takes to work to whatever spot that they want to. So the Rumble match itself was actually 33 minutes long, which is still a long match. So it explains why there's not a lot of matches on the card. So the action was called by Vince McMahon and Jesse the Body Ventura. So let's get into the evening itself. Our opening contest was a singles match between Ravishing Rick Rude and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Now, one would think these two would set the house on fire to open a show, but honestly, the match didn't deliver like I thought it was going to. It wasn't an awful match, but it wasn't what I thought it could be, given the ability of these two. There were tons and tons of arm bars in this one, which really slowed down the match. However, there was a decent flurry of near falls near the end, which helped the overall of the match. Speaking to the end of the match, Steamboat goes for a top rope cross body, in which Rude pulls the referee in front of him, who ends up taking the brunt of the shot. Rude then performs a Canadian backbreaker rack. The official gets up, calls for the bell. Rude celebrates as if he's won. Lee Corso says, "Not so fast, my friend," as the official raises Steamboat's hand, as he has DQ'd Rude for pulling him in front of the crossbody attempt. So your winner, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And we move on to our next segment of the night. Like I said, it was a 4-match card, but there were some other segments that helped pad out the evening. So we get a bench press segment next with Dino Bravo with Frenchie Martin attempting to set a world record bench press of 715 pounds. Jesse Ventura was acting as Bravo's spotter in this segment, and Mean Gene was up there kind of interviewing as the situation unfolded, as you will say. Bravo ends up being successful, and I put that in air quotes because, it was done deliberately. It was all a kayfabe type of thing. Ventura as the spotter really, helps him lift the 715, and it's pretty obvious, but they all, he did it himself. I didn't apply, I was only there for precaution, yada, yada, yada. Great heel heat, good segment to really, get, Bravo over as the slimy heel. So next we get a 2 out of 3 falls match for the WWF Women's Tag Team titles. Champions, the Glamour Girls, Judy Martin and Leilani Kai, with the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart in their corner, versus the Jumping Bomb Angels, which is Norio Tatano, and Itsuki Yamazaki. So let's get into this match. The first fall in this match went to the champs. After, I'm not really sure what to call this. I'll just call it a powerbomb flapjack. I mean, it was an awkward move. I've never really seen this, prior to this match. Martin, brings her opponent up. Looks like a power bomb, but at the apex, releases it over her head, which results in like a flapjack, and she gets the first fall. So the Glamour Girls are up 1 fall, none. Itsuki evens things up via a sunset flip a little later in the matchup. And then the deciding fall in the match, the Angels land a top rope double drop kick on Martin for the 3. So the winners and new WWF Women's Tag Champs, the Jumping Bomb Angels. Honestly, why all this was done still baffles me. So they brought in the women's tag belts from the NWA and, made a point of introducing them on television. They signed the Angels. All right. They build them up and showcase them at Survivor Series to help set this match up. They put them over in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Then we never see the Jumping Bomb Angels nor this version of the women's tag titles ever again after this evening. So I don't know if, Vince just after the match was over realized, this isn't registering with the crowd and just completely just abandons it or what the situation was. But it's kind of awkward. You went through all this, you did all this thing, you crown them, and then nothing. I think these titles changed hands one more time, and actually they changed hands in Japan. So we never saw them again here in North America. But like I said, if my research is right, I think they changed hands in Japan, went back to the Glamour Girls, and then they just deactivated them. Yeah. So after the tag match, we get another segment. This time we get the contract signing between WWF champion Hulk Hogan and his challenger, the 8th Wonder of the World, Andre the Giant. This was their big rematch from WrestleMania 3. They were signing the contract, which was going to air on the main event in February on NBC. So let me bring you up to speed a little bit on the entire situation going on here. Since Survivor Series, Andre's quote-unquote services had been purchased by the $1 Million Man, Ed DiBiase, who had recently, debuted about, a month and a half or so prior to this. And DiBiase, comes in and attempts to buy the WWF title off of Hogan, obviously to no avail. So he does, what he feels is the next best thing, and he turns around and buys Andre, basically saying, hey, I'm going to pay for your services. I want you to get the title off Hogan and give it to me, to which Andre agrees. So that's what's kind of, setting this up. It's a WWF contract signing. So how do you think it goes down? After the contract is signed, all, decorum breaks down. Andre slams Hogan's head into the table, flips the table over on him, yada, yada, yada. So typical WWF contract signing, but we pad out, another 15, 20 minutes of the show. So next we get the first ever televised Rumble match. Like I said, this was not the first ever Rumble match. They'd been doing a few of these house shows to kind of work out the kinks. This is our first televised Rumble match for actual Rumble event. And they were kind of doing this as a proof of concept to see how a large, broader audience would react to this concept. It had been going over well at house shows, so bring it to the masses and see how it goes over. This was only a 20-man Rumble, not the 30-man version that we're used to seeing today. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to list out all the participants. Then I'm going to talk about like some key factors in it. I'm not going to go through elimination for elimination. But let me list out the participants, and I'll list them out in the order that they entered. So for the beginning of the match, start off with Bret the Hitman Hart and Tito Santana. Third man in was the Natural Butch Reed, followed by Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Jake the Snake Roberts, King Harley Race, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell, Sam Houston, Dangerous Danny Davis, Boris Zukov, Don the Rock Morocco, Nikolai Volkov, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Outlaw Ron Bass, B. Brian Blair, Hillbilly Jim, Dino Bravo, The Ultimate Warrior, One Man Gang, and last but not least, the Junkyard Dog. So, like I said, I'll talk about some key factors in the match, not necessarily every elimination. The man that has the dubious distinction and honor of being the first ever eliminated from a broadcast Rumble event was Butch Reed. The individual that lasted the longest in this first ever broadcast Rumble was Bret, who lasted 25 minutes and 42 seconds. Most eliminations for the first Rumble goes to the one-man gang with 6 eliminations. Our final 4 in this matchup were Dino Bravo, Don Morocco, One Man Gang, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And Duggan wins the first ever Rumble, ducking Gang, pulling down the top rope at the same time, thus causing Gang to spill over the top to the floor. So Hacksaw was the winner of the Rumble match. Honestly, I think this should have ended the show, but instead we get our second 2 out of 3 falls tag team matchup. This one not involving any titles, so I don't understand why we have to go to the 2 out of 3 fall stipulation. Also wasn't furthering any type of feud or anything like that, so there's no real major grudge going on here. The match was between the Young Stallions, Paul Roman, Jim Powers, and the Islanders, Haku and Tama. So just 2 months removed from being part of the winning Survivor Series team, the shine has totally come off the Stallions. It's clear in this match that Vince has totally lost interest in them as they go down 2 straight to the Islanders. Like I said, I just don't understand why this was a 2 out of 3 falls. I don't understand why this closed the show. It was a very lackluster, match. 2 mid-card tag teams. And I am being generous calling the Stallions a mid-card tag team. They're actually low-card tag team at this point. Like I said, around Survivor Series time, they were mid-card, but for whatever reason, Vince is just completely soured on them. And we really don't see much of them after this in any major capacity. So that was the show. Proof and concept was sound, and the Rumble was well received and has become a staple of WWF/E pay-per-view ever since. In many people's regards, it's their favorite event of the year. WrestleMania is the big daddy, but a lot of people always say, "Oh, I love the Rumble," because you never know what's going to happen when those clocks hit 0. Who's coming out? This past year we've got Edge's big surprise return, so everybody loves kind of the intrigue around the Rumble. Not everything in the show was a gem. Like I stated, why introduce women's tag belts, sign and build up, crown jumping bomb angels, and then do nothing, with either that team or those titles. Why end the night with a second 2 out of 3 fall tag match instead of, that big battle royal that the whole show, built around. Just little things like that didn't make a lot of sense. I think, like I said, it was a proof of concept type thing. Maybe like, oh, let's get it on earlier and see how it goes. And then I realized, oh, we still have time. Let's work another match, yada, whatever. But it was still a solid show. Like I said, it wasn't, I'm not completely slamming the show. I think it was a heck of a lot better than the Bunkhouse Stampede. And it did what it was supposed to do. It got the Rumble over, and it helped build, storylines going forward. It helped build to February's main event broadcast, which then will in turn help build the WrestleMania 4. And, so it did what it was supposed to do. So my rating, 10 belt scale, I'll give the first ever Royal Rumble event 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. It wasn't bad. It wasn't, it wasn't super. It wasn't awful. It was about middle of the road, but it was decent. Next up on my classic retrospectives, we will discuss the aforementioned main event. And then, after that, we've got the initial Clash of Champions and WrestleMania 4. I'm not sure which order I'll do those in. But, those will be what's after main event. So, last retrospective, I put up the mystery title, told people to take a guess. So, here is the answer to the mystery title belt. It was the WCW World Title used at Great American Bash 91. Like I said, this was not a long-lived title belt. It's kind of obscure. But it was used, and it was kind of the first, the first WCW title. I know Flair is recognized as the first champion with Big Gold. But that was the old NWA title. I know it comes back as the WCW title, but this was the first version of a world title for WCW that wasn't from the NWA. It was a filler title, obviously, the one they had designed and wasn't ready in time for the event. So they had to, figure something out, and they repurposed an old title. It's kind of, makeshifted and thrown together, as you can see, with plates slapped all over it to cover up, other logos. But kind of funny. And a little bit of history and trivia there. So let's do another one. All right. So take a look at this title. All right. Post your guesses. And I will reveal, this one, my next retro. So give the channel a like, a share, a subscribe. Stay safe out there. Be good to one another. And I will see you all when I see you.